My name is Jane, and my project that I will be discussing is improving urban tree health through the use of biochar and biofertilizer. And since this project was in collaboration with the City of Toronto, I'm also going to be discussing how these soil amendments can be used to support Toronto's 2050 Canopy cover goal. So a quick overview of my presentation. So first, I'm going to go over what exactly Toronto's Canopy cover goal is before going into a little bit about the greenhouse experiment, which Gavin just talked about. And then the second half of my presentation will be the more practical static stuff. So how exactly we can implement what we saw in our greenhouse experiment citywide. And then lastly, I want to talk about city case studies. So some cities that have already implemented a similar soil amendments and how we can maybe take some inspiration and implement that in Toronto before ending on some final take-home messages. Oh. Okay, so this is this is a map of Toronto's tree cover. And spoiler alert, the current tree canopy cover from the 2018 tree canopy cover study is 28.4%, and I believe that is the most recent value, so it should still be around there. Unsurprisingly so, if we look at a map of Toronto ravine systems, we can see that tree cover kind of correlates to where the green space and the ravines are. So this kind of highlights how there is the potential to target those more urbanized areas where the street trees are in order to improve that tree canopy cover. So once again, Toronto's tree canopy cover goal for 2050 is going to be 40%. So, like I mentioned before, street trees, they are very important. They provide a lot of ecological, social, cultural benefits. Not only that, they account for around 19.4% of the city's urban forestry structural value when they only make up around 6% of the total tree population. Not only that, they account for around 30% of the total value associated with avoided runoff. Unfortunately, being a street tree is hard. They face many unique challenges such as soil compaction, limited rooting volume, a lot of de-icing salt during during the winter. Because of that, you can kind of see that represented in the annual mortality rate. The annual mortality rate for Toronto's trees is around 3.3%, but for street trees, that's more than triple of that at 10.1%. So this is especially an issue for newly planted trees. Establishing and kind of getting used to the environment after transplanting is very difficult, so they might face high mortality rates. That is why in the trials that I'll be talking about later, we only tested trees that were planted within the last 2 years. So what can be done about that? Again, Gavin already mentioned how important soil health is, so I'm going to go more into like why we might consider soil amendments as a form of enhancing tree health. That leads us to our greenhouse experiment. We tested the soil amendments, so biochar and biofertilizer. And this is following the work of Melanie from our lab. She also tested biochar and biofertilizer, and she tested it in silver maple. So we do know that we have been seeing enhanced growth and nutrient uptake. So we're continuing that work. So in case anyone doesn't know what biochar is visually, it looks a little like charcoal, but it is very different. It is made of organic biomass heated at very high temperatures under very low oxygen conditions, usually through the process of pyrolysis. And because of that, the structure is very porous, I see there. And this presents a lot of really great benefits, such as assisting with nutrient retention, stabilizing soil pH, stimulating soil microbial activity, remediating heavy metals, mitigating soil compaction, increasing water retention, and we're seeing it used more and more in an urban forestry context. And anyone who's ever worked with biochar knows you will get very, very dusty. And also, I will mention the main caveat of using biochar, especially in an urban forestry context, is that it does have the tendency to immobilize nitrogen, at least in the short term. So that is why we not only use biochar, but also a second amendment. So the biofertilizer. When I say biofertilizer and inactivated yeast, they are the same thing. So I will be using them interchangeably. Please don't get confused. So in our study, we actually have two different types of inactivated yeast. So the first one is from the company Balamont. And this was actually the inactivated yeast, the biofertilizer that Mel had used in her study. So we know that this product does work. This, in combination with the biochar, has shown really great results. Unfortunately, they no longer make it. So what can we do about that? We tested a second one. We wanted to see if we could find something that is comparable, that can show similar results. So the second one is locally sourced. It's from the company, from the brewery Bellwoods, because inactivated yeast is typically a waste product. And we collected it, and it kind of looks like this duck over here. We dried it out, ground it down, and up there you can see them side by side. So the one on the left is the commercial one, and the one on the right is the local one. Visually, I would say they look quite similar. The commercial one might be a little finer, but all in all, not too bad. And Like I mentioned before, the main purpose of using this inactivated yeast is to add the nitrogen back in because biochar is immobilizing it and plants need nitrogen. And if we look at the nitrogen content, the commercial one is around 7.5% nitrogen and the commercial one is around 5%. So not too bad. So experimental design. What exactly did our experiment look like and how did we test these soil amendments? We looked at American oak, once again, because it is fast growing and it comments around street tree. We had 12 treatment groups in total, 8 replicates each, 96 plants. And it took place over 3 months. I feel kind of over there. So the treatment groups, I'll go over them very, very quickly. We had the control, so nothing, biochar only, and then we had the commercial yeast only, the local yeast only, and then the combination of the biochar commercial yeast and the combination of biochar and the local yeast. And we also wanted to test if there would be a salt effect because de-icing salt is such a big issue in Toronto. I will say now that in terms of tree metrics, tree health metrics, we really didn't see much of a salt effect. So even though you're going to see salt displayed on my graphs, I'm not going to mention it too much because it didn't really have that big an impact. It was more so seen in terms of soil health. Go. Methods. We did a lot of tests. These are only the ones that were related to tree health. So we had height and diameter, we had biomass, we had leaf area, we had chlorophyll nitrogen balance, we had gas exchange and fluorescence. And I will not be going through all of these because that would make this presentation way too long, but just the really, really fun ones. So first off is the biomass. Unsurprisingly so. Oh, sorry. Unsurprisingly so, the biochar and the commercial yeast combination soil amendments were the best. We saw an increase of around, on average, 131% in total biomass compared to control, and around an 80% increase in height. But if we look at the local yeast biochar combination, not too bad. We see on average it increased around 81% in total biomass and around 50% in height. So pretty good. And then next, I want to talk about the nitrogen balance index. Like I mentioned before, the biofertilizer's role was to add that nitrogen back in. Oh, sorry. Super fingers. So if we look at the nitrogen balance index, it can kind of tell us how well the plants have access to nitrogen or how well they're able to like utilize the use of it. And in terms of treatment groups, the ones that do have some sort of yeast does have a higher nitrogen balance than the ones that have no yeast at all. So the biofertilizer seems to be doing its job. Next, I'll be talking about total leaf area. So this kind of relates into Canopy, which will be in the Canopy cover. And we can see that the top graph over here shows total leaf area taken at the time of harvest. And again, results align with what we've been seeing. The biochar and the commercial yeast has the best results at around 128% increase compared to control. And the biochar and the local yeast comes not too far behind, 76%. And if we look at the relative leaf area growth rate, they're even closer. So again, the commercial product and the biochar combination doing a little better at 53%. But honestly, the biochar and the local yeast, 46% is very, very close. So how does this all tie into Canopy cover, especially Toronto Canopy cover goal? One, it increases tree health, which could potentially lead to a decrease in mortality and replacement. And secondly, there is the chance of faster establishment, which will lead to denser canopy sooner, all of which will support that 40% goal by 2050. I will mention some limitations. These results are based on greenhouse conditions. Conditions in the real world on the street is going to be very, very different. But we have been doing some trials, which I'll mention a little on later. Also, this is only one species. Again, the amendments could be species specific, so the results are not going to be one-to-one. Even so, there have been trials. One of the oldest of which is the trees by Sugar Beach that had biochar application, and we are seeing very similar results from their preliminary results. So next, okay, now I'll be moving on to the second half of my presentation, which is the more practical side of stuff, and how exactly we can implement what I just talked about citywide. Okay, so first I'm going to be talking about the current biochar trials that have been done by Sean's lab throughout the city. I do have some pamphlets, so feel free to pass them down. But there have been two main groups, so the hard surface planting species, so these are the ones that are located more downtown, and these I believe were biochar top dress last fall, so I didn't actually work on top dressing them, but I did do measurements of them over the summer. And the ones up there are the soft surface ones, so that was what my internship was about. The biochar ones only had, no, sorry, the hard surface trees only had biochar application. The soft surface, the soft surface trees had biochar and the local yeast. Yeah. Okay, so what exactly could this look like in terms of cost? Based on our study, we had two different biochar doses. So we had a lower one at around 3 kilograms per bag, and then we had a 6 kilogram per bag treatment. Yeah, 6 kilograms per treatment. And I did a little bit of research. I emailed a few biochar companies, and the lowest price I've gotten for bulk pricing was around $600 per ton. So that would come to around $1.80 per crate for the lower treatment and $3.60 per crate for the higher dosage. I will also point out at the bottom here, global biochar production, this is for 2021, and then the second bar is 2023. And we can see production is increasing exponentially, and the trend is only expected to continue. So with higher demand, higher supply, these prices are expected to go down. Yay. Okay, next, labor costs. I will mention that these are based on how much I was getting paid in the summer. So depending on who's working for the city, this will vary. So please take it with a grain of salt. But it will cost around $40 per tree. And if you add the biochar cost, that would be around $42 to $44 per tree. I didn't add any yeast costs because, like I mentioned, we used the local yeast and it was donated from Bellwoods. Thank you, Bellwoods. So we didn't actually pay for that. So if we compare the cost of using these soil mimics to the potential cost of structural value is basically the value of how much it might cost to replace a tree with a similar tree, which would be around $2,200. Then you can kind of decide if that trade-off of investing in soil mimics could be worth it if you're looking at how much it could cost to replace. Okay, now I'm going to go over some case studies. So Stockholm, Sweden is the earliest city to use biochar in an urban context. So they started out using biochar in structured soil in the streets in 2009, and they actually used to buy their biochar. But after 2017, they started making it in-house, and they have their own pyrolysis plant. So this could be something that the city of Toronto considers if they're willing to see this as like a long-term commitment. Other additional cities that have also considered that have or are planning to use biochar or produce biochar in-house are the ones listed above. Depending on how much urban tree biomass they're predicted to have, this will result in different amounts of projected biochar production. And this also depends on the type of production technology they use. But all in all, this is just to show that cities are adopting it, and Toronto could also maybe adopt it too. So finally, some take-home messages. What can we learn from all of this? One, soil mimics good, yay. And it can help support plant cover through increased tree health, faster establishment, increased groundwood, and also increasing the survival rate of newly planted trees. Also, there is a strong potential for circular economy. Like I said, biochar, you could be taking something that could be considered waste and using that in the city again. And also the inactivated yeast, it's already a waste product. Why not use it for something good? And lastly, there's the potential for the city of Toronto to be a trailblazer. No one else is using inactivated yeast in their street trees. We could be number one. Thank you. I would like to thank you to Sean and Melanie for guiding our studies. Thank you for Gelvin for being my internship partner. Thank you for Joe for being the RN, planning a lot of the trials, and also a lot of the beautiful pictures were from her. I stole them from her. Also, thank you to the rest of the Comics Lab. Thank you to the City of Toronto and Adriana and everyone here for allowing this project to happen and allowing us to work on it. It was a privilege. Thank you to Titan Biochar for the biochar. Thank you to Bellwood for the yeast. Thank you to Go for you listening to me ramble on and supporting me. Thank you.
So Jane was taken into a whole new level with very good presentation stuff. Well done. So you, rest of you, people who are going to present, Jane asked to have the mic in her hand, so you are welcome to do that style like opposed to speaking into the microphone podium. So thank you very much, Jane, and I'll turn it over to Adriana.
Thank you. Lovely presentation. That was a very fun ride. I feel like there's so many questions about this topic, but well, I'll keep it brief. The treatment style that you guys implemented, obviously we don't have the long-term data, so we don't know the results. In your research, did you find that you tested the 3 kilograms and the 6 kilogram, which one is there one that's recommended over another? And then also in terms of the actual application style, we have, the top dressing was what you worked on over the summer, but I know that there's also the opportunity to apply it at the time of planting. Based on your research or what you know, do you know if there's a significant difference or what would be the preference?
In terms of dosage, right now we are testing 2 dosages to see how they compare long term. And because the trial just started, there isn't much results yet. I believe from the preliminary results, the results, both of them are seeing pretty good, but we're expecting the 6 kilogram one to have better results long term. And in terms of top dressing versus applying it at the time of planting, I feel like it sounds a little more efficient to apply it at the time of planting, especially if you're able to calculate that dosage to be around what's needed. I believe that's what Stockholm does, but I only know based on experience of top dressing because that was what was feasible for us.
Would you say the same for the yeast as well as Biochar?
Yeast, I feel like it was quite easy to just dump it and go. Like biochar, you need to like shovel it and like crack them in the soil and stuff. But yeast was like a and you leave.
Okay, so they can be separate. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
You want to pass back to Sean?
Yep.
Well, that was fun.
Thank you.
Type of biochar, I guess, looking around, we're bringing in some material all the way from Saskatchewan. We have a company that's donating it. And it's a mixed conifer feedstock. And I guess just thinking about that as another avenue for optimizing application. Some types of biochars, whether it should be just top dressing or in the mix that's used with tree planting or other kinds of options. Focusing on those practical details is really important to having this potentially roll out on a large scale. What are your thoughts?
But the type of biochar definitely does matter in terms of results, but also I think the main issue with top dressing is, like I mentioned before, there's the hard surface trials and the soft surface trials, and I didn't apply to hard surface ones, but we went back and we did measurements. And sometimes because they're in such high traffic areas, some of the biochar was gone from maybe like people stepping over it or kicking it or whatever. So maybe if you were able to like bury it out a little for hard surface, that might be more beneficial. But honestly, I think soft surface, there's a lot of the areas were like industrial, so I doubt there would be as much foot traffic. So I guess it depends on like what is viable and what the city has resources to. Because top dressing is kind of easier to do, but maybe like if you were able to bury that and get like a nice high quality biochar, it would last longer and it would be more beneficial.
Yeah, Sean, you're a partner there too.
Hello, fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed the cost comparison. I know that City of Toronto and all other cities put a lot into structuring the soil through non-organic manner. The structural scaffolding capacity of biochar, could that replace the cost of other structural cost inputs for these urban trees?
Sorry, what was the?
I think like, could it be a kind of structural soil?
Oh, like Sweden. Yeah, I mean, there's potential to follow Sweden, especially because they've been doing it for so long and it's clearly working for them, right? So we could take a page out of their book.
More questions? Right. No, go ahead.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Great presentation, Jane.
Thank you.
I love talking about biochar and all and endless possibilities. And I want to go back to the cost comparison because as a city, we think of budgets, we think of capacity and all those things. One cost I didn't see that I'm curious if you could weigh in on was the cost of preparing your
Oh, yeast, yes. I prepared for this.
and what you think that might be.
So, All
Did I
right.
miss it? Was it in there?
No, I put it in the end in case anyone had any question about it, but, let me just. So basically, this is, I included it in the labor cost, so, the top equation was basically the cost it took to top dress, and then the second one is how much it cost, for preparing the yeast, so it took. I calculated our salary and it would have been around $22 per hour, and then we're talking about 8-hour days. It took us around 6 days, and it took 3 of us. It was Joe and Galvin and I who prepared the yeast, and that would cost around $3,000. So I put it into the labor costs.
Okay.
But if we had better machinery, it would have been a lot faster because we were working with a tiny little grinder, and it took a while.
Right. Awesome. That's great to see. Thank you for doing that number crunching.
No problem.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, you can go to the results slides where you talk about the leaf area. I just, maybe I misunderstood. You had the salt versus no salt. Is it the case that there was no significant difference?
Yeah, I just wanted to show side by side that it was pretty comparable, but we didn't really see any significant difference for any of the 3 health metrics.
Okay,
For salt, at least. Soil, we did see significance for salt.
okay. What do you think that?
I think it's because elm is just a very hardy species, because this salt dosage has been tested in previous studies where it had like detrimental effects on the plants. So I feel like maybe we just needed to up the salt dosage if we wanted to see a salt effect or test a different species.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer and Adriana, and it's nice to know that the city is watching tax dollars. I guess it sounds like employing the cheap labor. But, who else has a question? Oh, we have one more question from the city. You.
Talking the mic.
I just wondered if we could speak to why you selected the 4 trees to study out in the field. I noticed you picked honey locust and Kentucky coffee, and they both fix nitrogen. So I just wondered if that was part of the.
Oh, for the crop surface plantings, hackberry, honey locust, spearmint maple, and Kentucky coffee tree. I believe these are some of the more common trees, but not only that, it was more of a logistics thing. So how many we can, if they were able to be in a cluster and we could hit those up in like the same day, because we only had the summer to do all this, right? So I think that's the main reasoning.
All right, thank you.
We have a question in the back.
So you mentioned labor cost quite a bit. So does that include like everything from preparing the biochar to actually applying it to the trees?
Yes.
I think.
We have time for a couple more questions for Jane. Anyone's got one? Oh, hey,
In answer to the question about legumes, we are deliberately looking at legume species here because there's some great prior examples where legumes and biochar partner very well together as well. So the addition of the biofertilizers is an initiative.
right. More questions for Jane? Yes.
Thanks for the presentation, really awesome. Is there, based on results we've seen so far, is there cases where you would look at whatever stresses particular tree is having and sometimes only use biochar or only use yeast?
I believe for the trials, we generally chose trees that weren't being were doing okay. We didn't, if they were stressed, we took them out the study. But I think Sean mentioned that that's the next step, looking at how well the soil amendments can treat stressed trees that are already stressed, as opposed to the ones that we picked that we figured were doing okay already.
Any more questions? Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.